Rules TV, where the underground meets the playground. I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Jeff Rappaport.
I'm Brian Botley.
And our guest today is Johnny Dee.
Howdy.
Say hi.
Folks at home.
Drummer of Waysted, Britney Fox, Doro.
Yeah.
World War III.
Oh, going way back.
Anything else? Is that enough?
That's a lot, but there's more, but, probably wouldn't know.
You don't remember?
Know much about them.
All right. That's plenty.
Yeah, that's a good start.
I like to start off with a little bit of history.
Okay.
Probably widely known for more of the Britney Fox and Doro stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Britney Fox in this area, of course, came up in the same time as Bon Jovi and Skid Row and Cinderella and all the other East Coast metal
explosion.
Right. Mm-hmm. And let's see, so 93 you joined Doro?
Correct. Yeah.
And you've been with them since?
Yeah, man. It's hard to believe, but it's going into my 20th year next year. Well, this year, 19, but I mean, it's probably the longest I've been in any band,
That's pretty good.
It's a long job.
It is.
For anybody to have a job that long.
Yeah, except the gaps in between actual work are pretty,
Oh, I think, man, you worked at the Gap.
No, I might have to work at the Gap at this point if we have any more gaps in work.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the Britney Fox era, you guys gained success pretty quickly. You came on like the second kind of wave of the metal around that era. Was there a specific moment where you thought, this is the dream, this is what we've been working for?
Well, I joined the band, pre-launch, but I mean, they had actually scored their deal right before I joined the band. So for me, it was like a next progression from the Waysted thing was sort of my entry into doing things for real. Like, first major label record that I made, the first video I'd done, the first tour, we toured pretty extensively on the one record that I did we supported Iron Maiden. And so I kind of cut my teeth on the big deal there. So for me, when Britney happened to call and I came back to the home area, and then it was kind of like taking a bit of a sort of a step backward and then kind of 3 steps forward sort of thing,
right.
So I was kind of knew that there was a possibility that it could really go big, but there was definitely no like real clue or real guarantee that it was going to blow up. But
so it was a bit of a gamble for you.
Yeah, it definitely was, but I mean, it was one that seemed like a good choice at the time, because the Waysted momentum kind of died off, and this looked like it had a lot of potential, so that's why.
So when it started to take off, was there something that you thought, like, okay, now this is where I thought it was going to get to,
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy to be in the midst of it all, I mean, it was obviously being from Philly with a band that was kind of breaking out of the same scene. And
did you know those guys?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I grew up with Billy Childs. I mean, the first serious band I was ever in was with him. I mean, he's a few years older than me, but there was a day when he knocked on my door and, I heard you play drums. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we need a drummer. And we just started jamming in my basement. And he's like, here, learn these songs. And it was like Rush and all these bands. I was like, holy crap, So we went way back. I also replaced Dean in World War III because he was a drummer pre-Britney, and so I replaced him on drums in World War III. So we definitely had like a history, So we were friends, and Michael I knew from various bands around Philly. So it was cool to be in something that was breaking out, but having known the guys as well. It wasn't like moving to LA and joining up with a bunch of strangers or something.
Right, you didn't feel like hired gun.
Yeah, it was cool that we were all sort of fighting for the same, cause.
When you joined Waysted, it was kind of like that, because you didn't know those guys, right?
A little bit. I mean, my best friend Jimmy DeLella actually got me the gig with Waysted, so it was actually 3 Americans in the band at the time. So it's funny how all these bands that I'm in from Waysted being myself and Jimmy DeLella and Danny Vaughan, 3 American guys, 2 British guys in the band, and now Doro. When I first joined Doro, it was 4 American guys plus her. So there's always these sort of like, you know, lineups that always have sort of one guy that I'm a little bit closer with, and you know, but Waysted was definitely like, you know, going to England and just experiencing a whole different, you know, a whole different world practically, you know, musically and culture wise and rock and roll. I mean, a different scene, metal scene, you know. So.
You're right there, Brian.
The burping is okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
Burp the baby.
That's why we have him in the chair.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the 80s metal was kind of known for excess.
Yeah.
A lot of the hair, a lot of women, and a lot of bands had their system of how to pick girls out of the crowd. Did Britney have any of those kind of systems in place?
Well, we never.
Anything fun?
I had a crazy roadie, a drum tech that was on the first tour, and he was basically like beyond even in a respectable way. He would just go out and, you know, all right, you all blowy for a pass? You know, it was like, you know, I mean, it was just, dude, like, could you have like a secret code or something? You know,
not subtle at all.
No. So, needless to say, he was fired after the first couple months because he was just giving us a bad rap. But, you know, for us, it was more or less, speaking for like when we were on the Poison tour, I mean, we were happy to get seconds and thirds.
Oh, sure,
throwaways. You know, there was
I'm sure
so
they're not
much
so
to
bad.
go around. Not at all.
Did they pass them on to you guys? Did they go like, hey, you know, here's a present for you?
It was, they were too busy to even bother talking to us, you know, most of the time. It was just like, hey, there's, you know, a whole after show room full, and they had already taken their pick, so we would just like go through and
it was like the percentage of genital warts.
Like
the glam rock scene.
Pretty, pre, you know, going back pre most of that.
Yeah.
Not warts, but most of the real nasty stuff. Anyway.
Did you have any bands you did tours with that? Well, you say Poison, you guys didn't really associate with too much.
No, we did. They were awesome, man. They really treated us like really, really great. I mean, they gave us free reign. We could do anything because I guess they had gotten screwed over by so many bands when they were opening.
And they were Pennsylvania bands,
right? And they were totally cool. Still friends with those guys. I mean, Ricky. I mean, I speak to him every time they come through. Talk to him from time to time. But they were awesome, man. They really spoiled us in a way because, you know, it was like, you know, most bands, don't go there, don't look at him, don't do this, don't do... And they were like, man, just go out and play, have fun, and you know, it was just really cool to have that free reign, you know, because it made the whole show that much more fun, you know?
Yeah, sure.
If you have bands, you know, you're talking about having a party on stage, and then you're coming out and making people, like, you know, giving them rules and stuff. You're basically like, you know, doing what your boss does, your job, and you know. So they made it fun, and we just like loved every minute of it. But yeah, there was definitely a few later tours that, you know, every tour is different. You know, you always got to kind of vibe it out and see what you know, how far you can really go.
Yeah. Any other bands you guys felt like you had like a connection with? Like you still talk to them, like they're still cool, or you just
well, in Britney, I mean, we didn't, you know, we really didn't have that long of a run. I mean, we did some gigs with Warrant. Those guys were cool. It's funny because they opened for us at one point when their first record came out, and then we later went to L.A. and opened for them at a big gig at, I think, Santa Monica Civic. And so we were all kind of jumping from, you know, headliner to opener and whatever. But this was all, you know, within the space of maybe a year or so, because, you know, right after the second record came out, I mean, we did a tour in Europe with Alice Cooper, which was another phenomenal tour. They treated us great. And being in Europe, a little bit of a different, you know, thing going on, much more of a hardcore music audience, not just like, you know, woo, you know. I mean, it was like, what, can these guys really play? Like, okay, yeah, they can, cool, let's get into it. You know, it was like So we won some real hardcore people over, but Alice treated us great. But yeah, I mean, most of the gigs we did with other bands we've never had any. We did have, when we were out with Rat, I think there was a little bit of weird, stuff going on, but I think that was later in their kind of downslide, you know, where Piercy was like, clear the hallways when I walk to the stage, and we're like, what? Really? The hall's like half full, dude. Like, okay, whatever,
Were you allowed to look at them?
No.
You couldn't make eye contact.
No, it's like, just go hide in the corner.
Yeah. Well, I can understand maybe Robin Crosby, right? Because he was giant, wasn't he?
Yeah. Robin was awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to, hey, little buddy.
Yeah.
I have some photos of him, standing with him. Because I met him when I was in Waysted, so I'd actually known him longer than any of the other guys. Blotzer was cool, too. We hung out a bunch. But Robin was always, like, really, really friendly,
The gentle giant.
Poor guy, man. He was awesome. But he was like, trying to be sober at the time.
Sure.
And the band was very adamant about him staying sober, but he would like hide a bottle of Jack Daniels in my wardrobe case, so it'd be like before the show,
That's sad.
Hey, little buddy. I get a swig, sure, man, come on in, big guy, the king.
Were you like Gilligan to his skipper?
Kind of, yeah. Except I didn't wear the silly hat.
No.
That's good.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you went out and joined Waysted, I mean, when I understand your first gig was at the London Marquee. That's true?
You've done your homework.
Right, free.
Yeah.
And, I mean, one thing I was surprised is it's smaller than I anticipated it to be, the Marquee.
Yeah, man.
But legendary place.
Totally. I mean, I don't even know if that was the original. There's been a few locations. I know that was definitely back in, that was 85. I think it was before they moved it to a different location. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that was like a mind blower. The Who played there. So I was like,
that's awesome.
You hear that kind of stuff, and you're like, what? But, the biggest thing was it was my first gig. I was, crapping in my pants about the whole scenario. And then, oh, by the way, Steve and Bruce from Maiden are coming, and they're going to get up and jam on a couple UFO songs. So I was just like, what am I doing here? This is unbelievable. So that was my entry into that whole world, but it went great. I mean, it was basically a showcase for EMI as well. I mean, they were pretty much like on the launch pad to do a record for EMI, but they wanted to see the band, they threw a big party, and that was that, and it all came off without a hitch, Next day we're in Kerrang, and I'm just like, blown away. So it was awesome.
Speaking of all the foreign magazines, I used to read all the ones like Kerrang, Metal Forces, and Metal Hammer.
Yeah.
Which one was your favorite, and why was it your favorite? Out of those three.
I think Metal Forces was cool. It was more like, just the straight up fanzine vibe, Kerrang was a little step above that, you know what I mean? And they had like all the killer photographs and all the, just really seemed to be that a notch above, like a fanzine type of thing. So, and for me, it covered, I guess, Metal Forces did a lot more, I guess, underground and heavier bands, For me, Kerrang kind of covered the sort of commercial rock bands as well, like UFO and Maiden and stuff like that. And so, that was my favorite.
I found Metal Forces, for the reasons you described, was always my favorite. And that's actually before, there wasn't really MTV, or there was very little of it. Yeah. And there was no metal anywhere on the radio or anything like that. So I learned most of the bands I got into were from Metal Forces.
Right.
Reading about like the reviews, the demos, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's that's like that magazine. When I did Metal Rules, I wanted to be like a funny version of that. Like, I thought that magazine had all the information, but I wanted to have a little humor edge to it.
Yeah.
But Kerrang! I always found like way too British.
Right. Yeah, very British.
Yeah. I mean, it was like with the slang and all that.
The slang and even the comics.
Pandora Peroxide.
Right. What is that? What is that word?
Yeah.
Wankers and bollocks and
bonnets.
But later on, I got to like live that whole world. So I would come home from Waysted trips, and my family or friends would be like, "Dude, what's wrong with your voice? Like, I picked up this accent and like these words and stuff." So it was.
You're like Madonna before Madonna.
Exactly.
Nice.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come right back.
Alrighty.
Reload the film camera.